Surely you will remember the video of the origin of Tik and Tak. The survival of their race was in danger when their planet Táktiko ran out of curiosities, which were their main food. They decided to send their two most capable agents, Tik and Tak, who managed to find an alternative source of knowledge on Earth, and send the energy back to their planet. A fantastic adventure with a happy ending. But the truth is that this story also has a dark and terrifying part that we had decided not to tell you about. Not until strictly necessary, until now. It all started the same day that Tik and Tak arrived on Earth. Their ship was lost due to a failure in the guidance system and ended up in a small port in northwestern Spain. They didn't know it at the time, but the fault had nothing to do with the GPS. Something bad was going to happen. Fortunately, they soon made friends with the family that adopted them and the townspeople. Everything was going well until strange things began to happen at night, things that had never happened in the area. Someone found in the field a carcass of an animal that had been attacked in the head with a long, sharp object. Nobody could explain that. It couldn't have been caused by another wild animal, but what human would do something like that? The mystery increased when another night the museum was looted. It was completely destroyed. Fortunately, no one was there at the time. The strangest thing is that nothing was stolen, and the cash register was left intact. But when the real panic began to spread was the following night. This time, the objective was the library, and although nothing was missing either, there was a victim. The librarian was found dead with the same puncture wounds to the head and a ghastly grin on his face. People began to turn against Tik and Tak because the start of the attacks had coincided with their arrival in the village. In addition, the objectives coincided with the places they most often visited, places where they could feed their thirst for knowledge. They offered to solve the mystery, in their roles as Sherlock Tacker and Watson Ticker. But when they had barely begun to investigate, Tak gave up, saying that it had no possible explanation. That surprised Tik a lot. It was the first time Tak had abandoned an unsolved case. He couldn't find an explanation either. Who would commit such atrocities with their own hands? Suddenly, Tik froze, looking at his arms. He noticed that the pointed ends matched the victim's wounds. Knowing that he wasn't responsible, that fact left Tak as the perfect suspect. But something inside told him that he couldn't be the culprit and he had to prove his innocence. Desperate and unable to count on anyone's help, he did the first thing that occurred to him. The next night, he tricked Tak into locking him in the basement of his house and ran to what he thought was going to be the new objective of the attacks, the school. But when he got there, it was already too late. The building was burning, consumed by a violent fire, and although at that time it was usually empty, one of the teachers appeared crawling from the flames, still conscious, but with the same puncture wounds to the head. Tik tried to find out the identity of his assailant, but the man seemed to be stunned. He just grunted and made instinctive gestures. When he looked directly at Tik, panic gripped him and he fled. Tik didn't understand anything. The people who arrived alerted by the fire turned furious against him and he had to escape. He ran home to free Tak and tell him what he had seen, but when he got there, he found the basement door open. He walked slowly down the steps and searched the darkness. In the background, he thought he saw Tak with his back to him, but when Tak turned around, what he saw left him cold. He looked like a tic-tacker like them, but his features were sinister. His head was more swollen and had some strange furrows. His eyes were uneven and bloodshot. His skin was rough in texture, and his arms seemed to slither through the air like tentacles. The tip of one of them, smeared with blood, began to caress Tik's head, which could only tremble. In an instant that seemed like forever, Tik remembered a scary story he had been told as a child. The legend of TOK, a deformed and bloodthirsty tic-tacker with an overdeveloped brain who stole intelligence from the rest, sucking it directly from their brain. Suddenly, Tak stepped out of the shadows and yanked Tik out of there running. Outside the house, they met the group that had chased them. They were going to launch themselves at them, but as soon as TOK emerged from the door, with his bloody tentacles, they understood who the real culprit was. The monster was forced to flee in the middle of the night, pursued by the enraged mob, which eventually cornered him at the edge of a cliff. When they lunged for him, TOK simply dropped, and Tik and Tak looked his misshapen body disappear into the rocks and escape the sea. Tak confessed that he had suspected TOK from the beginning, but didn't believe in his existence until he saw it with his own eyes. He couldn't help but feel guilty at the thought that they had brought him to Earth, probably hidden in his own ship. At least the nightmare was over. Or so we thought. Because in recent days, we have received several messages from TikTakers who claim to have sighted a creature with very similar features. It may just be a coincidence, but we still wanted to warn you. With his lust for blood and knowledge, no TikTaker is safe from TOK the killer. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!